Hello, thank you for joining the Rethink webinar, Unleashing AI and Transforming Small to Medium Businesses. We're joined today by Dr. A.K. Pradeep, Sergio Gonzalez, myself, and Cindy Ann Lewis of Rethink. Today, we'll be covering a lot of different topics. And to kick us off, we'll be talking about how every small business has faced a moment where they had to embrace new technology, whether it was moving from regular cash registers to a more digital POS system, shifting from traditional marketing to online marketing, and of course, adopting cloud-based tools. We see generative AI as simply just the next revolution and evolution. In this discussion, we'll take mid-size accounting firms as our case study. They're already using all sorts of different tools for their business. So why is it that AI feels like such a leap? And on top of that, we'll unpack the psychological and operational barriers that make AI seem difficult from past technology shifts and discuss how small to medium businesses can think about AI as not just a disruptor, but as an accelerator of things that they're already doing. So with that, let's kick it off. What do you see as the major operational and psychological shifts that make AI seem different from other shifts we've seen before?
Well, if I could take a first crack at it, right? I think I wrote my first AI program when I was 18 years old, back in India. I am 62, despite my youthful appearance and immaturity. And I would say in that long journey, until the last 2 years, AI was mostly a smart and glorified idiot, right? It basically was kind of there, but not quite there. And you really had to go finish it and help it and this and that. All that's gone. Today, AI innovates faster than I ever can. I have a little over 90 patents. I can't compete with my algorithms. They are unbelievably creative. And you could draw, you could paint, you could write poetry, but damn, these algorithms, they draw better, they sing better, they write better poetry, they have heart, they have soul, they have everything, everything. So if you are this accounting firm and wondering to yourself, every time I try to explain estate taxes to my clients, I can't get it past them. They say, you say that. And you wonder, how am I going to explain something complicated to my clients? And you try 10 ways and they still don't get it. So now you would be able to use generative AI and accurately and precisely explain something in a manner that makes sense to them, personalizing information, instruction, guidance, etc. Which, if you're a small business and you say, I can't create 10 brochures, one for every person. But if I know that Chelsea comes in and she's a colorful person, she's got a blue shirt, she's got red lipstick, I got to talk to her in a particular way. It will generate that same information presented to Chelsea in a way she understands. On the other hand, if I look at Cindy and she's all, quiet, toned down, all right, with the gray and white walls and everything. And I say, I got to present it to her in a different way. Same information presented in a manner that Cindy actually welcomes and understands. So
I don't think you summed me up correctly, but anyway.
no, I'm going with the inputs as they appear on the screen. All right. So but the point I'm making is Gen AI today is infinitely talented, unbelievably fast, mostly accurate, and allows you to personalize, customize in real time, and give you the same capabilities that a very large company has. This is about small and medium sized businesses. They only care about two things. Can I make my customers happy? Can I make money? That's it. That is the entire world of small and medium sized businesses, no more and no less. No time for frivolous expenses, expensive brochures, glossy this, none of that nonsense. And I can't customize it for everybody. So, what Gen AI gives a small and medium sized business is the capability to act like a very large one and to allow you to personalize and make it meaningful for every customer because every customer matters in a small and medium sized business. You can't lose anybody. And therefore, personalizing it, winning the customer, keeping them, but without hurting your pocketbook. Gen AI today, with a little bit of neuroscience, can do that for every SMB.
I think part of why this shift feels so different from some of the other ones that came before it is because it's forcing us to consider our place in the work that we do. Dr. Pradeep and I were talking about this the other day. We're probably not the only ones having a bit of an existential conversation. I won't say crisis, but a conversation about what role do I have in my organization, in my business, in the world, if this tool can do so much? And I don't know that I have the answer, but part of my journey in thinking about this is I get excited about thinking about where I've considered my value proposition is, right? Is it really and repeating the same reports over and over again? Is it really all of the very labor intensive tasks? Or is it in the case of a small or medium sized business, is it innovating new offerings? Is it having meaningful conversations with my customers so they can see that, hey, I care about your specific needs and I'm going to tailor your customer experience with me so that it meets those needs. One of the things that's excited me a lot about this, in my prior life in corporate environments was head of innovation programs. And one of the challenges that I've had in shifting away from a very large organization to a much smaller one is missing that dynamic that I have with hundreds to thousands of different inventors and innovators. But yet on my screen now, there's this little tool that I can have these collaborative design creative sessions. And I'm not as intimidated that, hey, this thing is doing a million things that I couldn't do. It's more of, hey, there's a million things that I don't have to do. It can give me a million possibilities. And then I can use my human judgment. Which of these things resonates the strongest for me? I won't always get it right. I'm human, as we all are. But let's also be fair. Not everything these algorithms put out is gold either, right? Now, it'll get better and better over the years. And maybe from a million things, we go down to 500,000, to 100,000, to, hey, here's the top 10 things you should consider. But bringing it back to this existential conversation I'm having with myself is, in whatever jobs you happen to be for our audience, right? What are those aspects of your job that historically you've identified your value in? I do this better than anyone else, or here's the thing that only I can do in my organization. And if that thing is something that generative AI is either going to displace or make a lot less difficult, maybe it's an opportunity for professional growth and personal growth of like, hey, this is fantastic. I can set this thing down and pay more attention to this other aspect that I've always wanted to get into, but I just didn't have the time, energy, or resources to pursue. So I think that's part of, at least for me, why this new technology feels so different is because we're being confronted with our assumptions about how we're productive, what value we bring to our business, how we can create value for our customers. And I hope that after conversations like this webinar, you start to get excited about, hey, maybe there are other things that are great outcomes from this.
So if I could just build one thing on top of what
Build away.
you said, Sergio, um, I've gone past the existential crisis, right? I'm so happy you're not there yet, but you will get there, I think. I have accepted my role as somebody who will bring coffee to this great machine that's doing unbelievable stuff. I will keep it wiped clean. I will make sure that the power cord never gets dirty and there will always be power. Because these things are so smart, so creative that I am not sure I do have much of a place in whatever I do. For a small, medium-sized business, it's like having a combination of the thinking of Richard Feynman, that of Einstein, extraordinary genius of the madman to market your product, and economists sitting down and telling you how to price it. You put everything together, and there is more. All of it available now. It's not some pipe dream sometime. The big corporation could get the booted and suited McKinseys to walk through and tell them what to do. The small
How long do you
companies,
how long do you think that small to medium businesses have a competitive edge given that they can personalize and do things that larger companies can't? Like how long do you think that timeline actually is before it's not as a
it's not, I have to say, Chelsea, I'm sitting at a company that whose revenues are close to 200 billion. All right. So, and these companies are using my expertise and my company's expertise in innovating, racing. Big companies are thinking like small and medium-sized businesses. They're absorbing this like no tomorrow. So
Mhm.
I'll say to you, if you're a small and medium-sized business, you have a very small window to use the technology and create a disruptive advantage. Otherwise, you will be eliminated.
Right.
This is a survive. It's the Hunger Games happening. All right. And Gen AI is that little, that little solve
Forget
that
alleviating
shows
the
up.
fears of everyone.
The little medicine that arrives. That's what Gen AI is. But these are
Okay.
Hunger Games that are being played.
Okay.
What I love about
Pradeep, I agree. Pradeep, I agree 100%. You're saying such wise things. And so, I'll let you go, and then I actually have some things to add.
I was just saying what I love about the discussions we've been having over the past, couple of weeks as we prepared for this webinar is there is a diversity in perspectives in different places in people's journeys. And I'm sure all of our audiences at different places in their organizations of how they think about this new technology. Um, I love and I support and I want everyone to have this sense of urgency. There is a window. Let's not pretend that it's infinite. But I also think part of that advantage for small businesses is, and this is why I really appreciated getting an opportunity to work with Dr. Pradeep on this webinar, is there's something very special and rich in the opportunity of the neuroscience, right? Why do people still buy very expensive Swiss watches? Any automation can make a better watch that's more precise, but yet they still do. Part of the history, part of our human connection of, I know that human hands made this. Now, of course, there's also the flex that people do, but for someone, like me, I really appreciate the crazy engineering that goes into making those tiny little marbles. And so I'm willing to pay that premium. And so for small and medium-sized businesses, I want to emphasize what Dr. Pradeep said. That window isn't as long as you think. It's here, it's now, you better get moving. But at the same time, you can use the advantage of there is uncertainty in your customers. Do I just hand over all my tax forms to an algorithm and just trust that it's not going to get me locked up because it didn't prepare my taxes correctly, right? So let's not pretend it's forever, but let's also take advantage that right now, this uncertainty, you're not the only ones who are trying to figure out what does this mean in my world, but every one of your customers is doing the same. And so there's an opportunity for you to leverage that neuroscience as well of how do I serve my customers who may have that hesitancy. So sorry,
Yeah.
Cindy, we're going to say more.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think I got a chance to introduce myself. I think we jumped straight into it. So I'll just, before I pivot into answering the question, I think I'll just quickly say a bit about Rethink. I won't carry on too long because these are our guests, of course, Chelsea and I hosting the wonderful Dr. A.K. Pradeep and Sergio Gonzalez. So I think just from our perspective, Chelsea and I started Rethink Consulting about 6 months ago. We were kind of stealth before that, but essentially we are building this amazing AI consulting business, and we offer AI strategy. We predominantly do AI strategy to small and medium businesses. We also offer business strategy as well as marketing strategy. So we offer a few things, and happy to share more details offline. But I think for us, what Chelsea and I have experienced in consulting a lot of CEOs of small and medium businesses is what we're finding, there's this huge challenge of the David and Goliath syndrome, where these smaller companies certainly feel, out of place against the big giants. They cannot afford the large, off the shelf technologies, AI technologies from Salesforce or anywhere else like Agentforce. So they typically, either look at bespoke AI, which is what Engine I develop. They develop very bespoke AI to suit your needs. And Chelsea and I will then also, before a company even realizes what type of AI technology they need, we will go in and have a look at typically, does this business even need AI? Is there a need for AI, firstly? Secondly, if they do need AI, what type of AI? Is it agentic AI, or are they even ready for that? Do they need something more basic? So we look at the needs of the business, and I think understanding the customer first in terms of proof points and pain points is essentially very, very important before we even get into the weeds of the AI discussion. And we bring lovely people like Sergio and Pradeep with us to some of our clients as experts. Both have many, many, many years of AI experience. My background was Capgemini, Ericsson, and Intel. I was CMO of some of those companies, and VP of marketing, etc. So, and I actually did some work in the AI space with NVIDIA back probably 6 years ago in the Capgemini realm. And it's AI is not a new thing. It's been around for a long time. Like Pradeep says, it's machine learning, LLMs, all this has been around. The generative AI has blown up. It's blown up the world, as we've all seen. OpenAI, etc. Agentic AI is also blown up the world now. It's the latest craze. I was in the blockchain days with Chelsea. That's where her and I actually met. We had a great time in blockchain back in the day. And funny enough, I see all my blockchain friends at all the AI events now. Everyone's just wearing a
Yeah,
different.
the worlds are converging, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So I
worlds
went
are.
to an AI event in the city about 2-3 weeks ago, the Tech Giga Party. I met some fabulous people who are even on this call there. Investors, founders, VCs. I'm part of that community in San Francisco. And what I've noticed, the trend is, everyone thinks, if you're a startup, you're behind, you're not going to catch up. It's hard to have budgets. You need a lot of budgets. You need big Tom to actually get going, huge amount of dollars, but you don't. If you chat to Chelsea and myself and people like Sergio, and you need bespoke needs, we can come up with those solutions very easily. And we have experts that we do consult, like Dr. A.K. Pradeep on the call. He's amazing. He's written a book on AI, Neuro AI, and a few others. He has 90 patents. So I just wanted to give a bit of context from our side, the angle at which we come at it. And typically, as the world is exploding and erupting, and everyone feels the need to race into an AI solution, you can also be rest assured that there's no point rushing it, because if you get it wrong, you'll have to start again. And some of these legacy businesses, like the Intels of the world, Intels and the big companies and the Googles it's harder for them sometimes to adopt AI because they have legacy systems and they have to plug it into all these legacy systems, especially agentic AI. Anyway, I'll pause there. I've said a bit now. I don't know, Chelsea, do you want to move on to the next question?
Yeah, lovely. Thank you for positing that. So maybe one last question, and then we'll move on to, or 1.5 questions rather, and then we'll move on to actionable next steps, because I know that we promised a section in here where we show you specifically what kind of AI tools you can use and how you can get started today. So with that, Sergio, can you give us, using what we mentioned earlier as a small to medium accounting firm, can you give us some concrete examples of how that would look both short and long term?
We're talking specifically about adoption and integration, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the things we found that's been inertia for customers looking to adopt generative AI are these either or conversations of automation bias versus algorithm aversion. I'm sorry, that's the engineer in me coming out, but what that basically means, right, is there's the two extremes where I believe this is correct because the computer tells me it's correct, versus the opposite, the polar opposite of that, which is I don't trust it because I don't know how it's doing its thing. And everyone we talk to is somewhere in that spectrum, either at the extremes or in the in-between. And so one of the things that we found is most helpful for smaller businesses to get started is you don't have to jump straight into automation, right? There's many, many steps. It's your business. You get to decide how far you want to adopt generative AI. You don't have to jump into agentic. Again, I want to emphasize and amplify what Dr. Pradeep is saying, which is get there as soon as you can as what makes sense for your business. But don't feel like that has to be day one, right? Like some of your businesses are very high stakes. If I happen to not produce the most perfect social media post, it's not the end of the world. But if you miscalculate someone's taxes, that's very dire, right? And so, pardon me.
Coffee.
And so one of the opportunities for you is to decide, look, I'm a little bit unsure of this new technology. I don't know what it's going to produce for my business. Don't jump all the way to the end. In this accounting business, right, as our example, don't just automate the reports and just send it off without a glance. Use the tools to offload some of that work and then still use human judgment as a due diligence, right? Trust but verify. Over time, you will learn, depending on the tools that you're using, what are they great at, what are they not so great at, right? And so one of the breakthroughs we're finding for those taking those first steps to adopt is using generative AI to start the first step, right? Not saying you launch a multi-million-dollar or tens of thousands of dollars of online ad spend, just automate it and go. There are certainly tools that will do that for you, but you don't have to jump there right away, right? You can decide, look, for this step, I'm going to use these tools to give me the first draft. And then I'm going to decide, was this first draft good enough? Fantastic, great, send it off. And the more you get through these iterations, you'll start to get comfortable. This is what makes sense for my business. This is the part that I have less anxiety around letting go of. And these are the ones where I need a little bit more time, need to find the right tools, or need to find the right inputs, and then let it grow from there. So for this accounting business, right? Imagine that the AI we can give it the inputs of, I need to produce this quarterly report for my clients. Let the AI take a first pass. Say, hey, look, I'm going to give you a template, format this for me, but then don't just automate it out, right? Don't connect it to your email to automate it out. Have someone in your team review it and say, okay, this is good, send it off. Same thing in terms of this is one of the things that Dr. Pradeep talked about that I'm excited about is how do you increase your touch points with your customers without overwhelming your resources, right? Generative AI can help you do that, right? So you don't have to wait till tax season. You don't have to wait till the quarterly reports. AI can help you check in with those customers and say, look, end of the quarter's coming up. Here are the things that we're going to need from you. Or, hey, based on your performance from the last quarter, we want to check in with you on X, Y, Z. So the long and short of it is you don't have to insert generative AI into your key flows yet, and you certainly get to decide to what degree you're going to automate with that sense of urgency, always in the back of your mind is, let me be aware of my market conditions. Where is everyone going? Am I trailing? But you don't have to go full stop, right? The most important thing is take that first step. Find that one small thing, and whatever you do, we're talking about the accounting firm, but in everything that you do, all of us have something about our job that's not our favorite thing to do. So let AI take a crack at it, right? And then you still get to decide where do we go next from that point. And I'd love to hear Dr. Pradeep's perspective on that as well.
Yeah, Dr. Pradeep, I'd love to hear your take on the psychological and neurological components of what's being
Well,
discussed.
I'm a very shy man, so I will
I
try
know.
to be articulate
Not
here.
true. That is so not true.
I'm sorry if I'm yawning. It's not because of the content or anything. It's just that I'm severely jet lagged.
But
I'm
people
in
are wondering.
London. Yeah, yeah, I am in London. So I'm barely awake. So you're getting the best of my thoughts, unconstrained, right? So, and I was up at 3 a.m. in the morning. So, and it's like 5:30 in the evening, and there is some more drinking to be done. So I'm just pacing myself. Um, so, so uh, if you're a small and medium-sized business, you don't have to go get 10,000 tools, right? There's just two or three of them that do the job. One, of course, is ChatGPT, and it's 5.0, 6.0, 7.0. Just get the latest one in the playground, right? Couple of $100 a month. And it's usually affordable. It's not crazy. You can definitely do it. The other tool is some combination of either Midjourney or DALL-E, right? Just to create some cool graphics. Even if your customers don't like it, at least you'll have fun making it, and it'll be a great little segue or a break from your day. And the third one,
Just
actually a
for people
very
that maybe don't know, these are imaging software.
Yeah. So Midjourney and DALL-E create cool graphics, right? That's all it is. So you want to design a brochure, you want to design something. So DALL-E is not that beautiful, but will follow your orders. Midjourney is a rebellious child doing awesome stuff, but will at times do whatever the hell it wants. And I would say that everybody on this call is probably a little more Midjourney like. Guys don't look like order takers, right? So, number one, get ChatGPT. Number two, get a graphic program like Midjourney or DALL-E. And then number three is something you all should definitely get is Google LM. Google's Notebook LM. Notebook LM, it is the most amazing tool. Basically, you feed it a dull, boring paragraph, right? The paragraph of, oh, we are an accounting firm and da 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 da. And you're like, oh my God, I'm jet lagged, but I'm essentially falling asleep hearing that. Then what it does, it takes that boring nonsense and converts it into an awesome podcast, all right, of two people sitting and chit chatting. The funny thing, the very information that was so boring, you couldn't bother to read it, when two people are chatting about it, you cannot stop listening. It's amazing, right? So it could be a report you're sending your customer, right? Or a bill that you're sending for your services. Imagine you're getting an invoice that is two people animatedly, joyfully talking about how much money you're going to shell out. Well, that's one cool way to invoice somebody, right? So what's funny, it injects entertainment, education, information, everything into a small business, keeping it simple without breaking the bank. Just with these three tools, you'd be 90% of the way. 90% of the way, where suddenly your itty bitty little company starts looking like a massive operation. Your graphics department is collaborating with your press room and creating this incredible thing. And it's just you with a cup of coffee and a beer cranking this stuff out in the back. That is the power of it. Not 10,000 tools, 3
Yeah, and
tools.
also learning the prompting, right?
So
Yeah.
the interesting thing, Chelsea, is that in the platforms I build what I call a prompt-free platforms.
I talked
Why?
about.
You ask, because prompting is like talking to a manic, depressed significant other and who is also narcissistic. So you really don't know when they're going to gaslight you, when they're going to go off the rails, and what's going to happen. That is the world of prompting. You say one thing a little differently, the outcome is completely different. So the systems are very sensitive to the choice of the prompt, the structure of the prompt, and the length of the prompt. So if you are not naturally a prompter or promptrix, depending on whether you're a man or a woman, all right, so then you will basically have to step back and say, there should be a better way to do this. And people are building them. Prompt free systems like hands free driving will soon be there, very soon be there. And that's really the right way to go, because the way that the AI systems are designed today, and rightfully so, they're very sensitive to prompts. So
Right.
we're going to get to that prompt free world. Of course, you got to tell it what the hell you want. It's not your mother. It doesn't know what you need. So you got to ask it, but there are better ways to ask without biasing the response.
I know we
Right.
wanted to spend the lion's share of today getting to people's questions. I want to cue us up for that with, just one small thing added to what Dr. Pradeep said. One of the analogies that I like to use in the AI world is, imagine you have a new intern. And at first, you're going to have a lot of hand holding, right? It doesn't know you yet, as Dr. Pradeep said. They don't know what you want. But the more that you spend time with that intern, the more they learn, the more they become more competent, the more they're able to anticipate your needs. And that's what's, for me, been exciting with generative AI. In the early days, as Dr. Pradeep's referring to, you had to be quite clever at how you use these prompts, right? It was vastly different, the quality of the results you were going to get. And that's still true. That's still true. Like, if you are a master of your prompts, you will still do better than promptless or whatever, right? The opportunity for our work is to keep lowering that barrier to entry. But if you spend the time, you'll be rewarded. That's the artificial intelligence part. We kind of just throw the acronym around, but we forget it's this artificial intelligence that's learning. And as you spend more time with it, as you give it more feedback, as you give it more data, it makes your life better and richer because it can anticipate these things, right? And so, I've been using ChatGPT most recently and just toying around to see where have these models gone. And at first, like Dr. Pradeep said, you have to feed it a lot. But I was just in a collaborative creative session with it last night, and it boggles my mind how quickly it's anticipating the unspoken thoughts in my head and rationalizing this thing that I just asked you to do. It will tell me, I know why you're asking me to do this, and here's your answer, right? It's really become this really treasured collaborative partner for me. When I don't have an opportunity to talk to my teammates, this helps fill those gaps for me. So for everyone on the call, right, as we transition to your questions, overcome that first inertia. Perfect is the enemy of good, right? So just start using these tools. And I love how Dr. Pradeep distilled it down to these three. Don't worry about the thousands. Just take that first step. And don't be intimidated that that first interaction you have with it isn't perfect. One of the lovely things, and we were talking about this the other day, is, you don't know exactly what it's going to say. There's going to be some beauty in that imperfection, and it won't be exactly right, but it'll spur something in your expert mind of like, hey, I hadn't considered that. There's a thread there. It's not right, but there's a thread there that I hadn't considered. Let me go dive into that part first, right? So thanks for giving me that extra moment there.
Perfect. Are we ready to move on to Q&A?
I think so. I noticed that a couple of people were reaching out to me saying that the chat was disabled. So if everyone could drop their questions into the Q&A. I'm not sure why the chat is disabled for you to ask questions there, but if you click on the Q&A button on the webinar, you can actually drop your question into the Q&A section. And I'm going to try and figure out how to enable the chat for everybody to ask questions there in the meantime. But
See, if you had Chat GPT,
I could
you
do
would have
that.
you would have known how to
Would read
enable
all
the
of our minds.
chat.
I know. Well, I have it on my phone, but I'm trying to be like mindful of looking at the camera. So I'm not going to go to my phone and Google that right now. But
Other opportunity I want to give everyone is to give us a type of business, and we can quickly talk about the potentiality of what can be done in your small to medium business with AI. But
yeah,
at least there's a couple of
there are
questions.
some questions. Yeah.
Do you guys, the panelists, do you see all the questions?
No. Oh, I got to click this
It looks
Okay,
like
Q&A thing.
I'll just read Isabel's question. What is the difference between Gen AI and plain AI? And when will AI be able to create great PowerPoints and graphics? Definitely not there yet, she says.
Yeah. So the words generative AI come from generative pre-trained transformers. That's the expansion of GPT. So it's really it's just jargon, six and one half a dozen of the other. However, uh, the old AI, as you would call it, the world of NLP, natural language processing, it's just some simple, stupid grammatical rules, syntax that enables the system to fake understanding, or you talk to it and it will usually not pass what you call the Turing test. The Turing test is actually a conceptually simple thing. There are two curtains. Behind one curtain is a machine or a computer, and behind the other one is a human being. And the Turing test is by asking a question and looking at the responses of the machine and the human being, can you correctly identify which was the human being? Well, that was based on a fundamental assumption that the human being is smarter and the answers will just drip with intelligence, charm, and charisma. Well, those days where the human constantly and consistently beat the machine, and where we say nothing has passed the Turing test, uh, those are gone. Well, yes and no. They're gone, but they're not gone in the sense that today, when you look at the answers from the machine and the human, 9 out of 10 times, the machine's answers are vastly superior to the dumb human. So you could still correctly identify which was the human and which was the machine. But it was just that these times, the machine's answers are just brilliant, just brilliant.
And I was actually kind of riffing a little bit off of what Mickey said and what you said earlier, which I thought was a really good use case, where you said just, use like it was your existential question of like, well, what don't I like at my job, and just use it to do that sort of thing. And I thought that was actually a really clear way of saying that, because usually what people dislike are the repetitive tasks that you would, if you had the luxury, you would send out to an intern. And so I have not seen a use case where, it makes sense beyond that. Like, oh, what would I give an intern or a junior to do? Because this is a very niche scenario. So creative director in branding. What I have found when people come to me and go, my God, look what it did, they're usually someone who's not like really versed in what else is out there. And they're not someone who can look at it and go, yeah, I've seen that before. Like a creative director, they might be like a producer or someone like that, like, oh my God, isn't it amazing? And it's, or, so, it was a bit of an observation, more than maybe more of an observation than a question, which is, we are pushing it to become, I guess, more human-like. There is an element where just isn't, because humans are unpredictable and we haven't read every book in the world or seen every movie or whatever, absorbed the entire font palette of the font library.
Want to jump in?
So
Let me share some of the magic that I've seen in my own tinkering with the
yeah,
tool. Right?
let me,
I
sure.
like to throw hard things at it, things that I don't think it's going to be able to do well, and I always find some aspect of pleasant surprise. Here's an example of a prompt I asked it. Okay, I'm a lot older than I look, or at least hopefully my looks haven't caught up to my age just yet. But I asked it, given the bestsellers in 1993, give me a brief of a trilogy of books that would have sold well in 1993. Do you know that this infuriating model gave me something that harkened back to my 1993 self and said, yeah, I'd read that. I absolutely would read that. It gave me the foundations of rich characters to build on. It gave me a massive challenge that faced this narrative universe. I could write that book today, and I would buy that book today. And that inspired me to think about tinkering more with this narrative universe, really pushing the boundaries of how creative can it be beyond the menial tasks that I give it. And in the beginning, just as I said, it was really frustrating. Like you said, it might be impressive to someone who's not versed in the expertise, but to someone who knows what they're doing, it's not all that impressive. It absolutely started there. But what shocked me was if I just gave it a little bit more of my time, gave it guidance and prodding and some information and some things to store in its memory, it is shocking its learning curve. So I agree with you. If you just ask it a question, give me a Cartier campaign for Valentine's Day, it will sound generic. It absolutely will. It will not be inspired. But if you feed it just a little bit of care and feeding, it's not as much as you think, but it's more than the bare minimum. It will start to get crazy and scarily creative, right? Not all will be gold. This is why I keep kind of leaning back into the, embrace the fuzziness. Why do people jump into those bargain bins? Most of that stuff is garbage, but there's that one hidden treasure that you're like, I'm glad I spent that time digging through this pile, right? In your field as a creative director, right? It's not going to do better. I know Dr. Pradeep and I are kind of in different places in the existential crisis conversation. I don't actually think I'm going to have an existential crisis. Maybe I'm arrogantly confident that I'm a creative person or that I do what I do well. And I'm not saying that he's not. He's supremely expert at what he does. It's just a different take on where this is. And these non-menial tasks, these creative tasks, I delight in. It's like I'm not a parent, but I've helped raise, my nieces, nephews, and younger cousins. And those little nuggets of gold that these crumb snatchers come up with, right? No adult will think that because we've kind of grown past that creative space, or we just think differently, or the realities of our adulthood intrude. But a child will just ask, why not? Why? I don't know any better. Why are pancakes circular? What happens if I make a square pancake? Does it defy the laws of physics, right? Now, as an adult, I wouldn't think to ask that, but then I'd ask, well, why not? Like, think about it. Why are White Castle hamburgers square? And people talk about it, right? It's like, it's just a shape, people, but people obsess over it, right? It's so differentiated in what it's doing. And just, I don't want to get too long in this question, but this narrative universe kind of idea, like I said, get into the tool, try it, know that the first stuff is going to be garbage.
Yeah.
Give it a little bit at a time, maybe spend 5-10 minutes with it a day and let it grow. Give it a chance to grow. And then you might find these pleasant surprises that, again, it's not going to take, maybe Dr. Pradeep and I are at different ends of the timeline right now. It's not going to take your job. It's just not for me.
No. I mean, I actually fundamentally don't believe it would, because something I just kind of occurred to me is in the narrative universe and in the creative universe, the auteur is actually going to kind of rule a little bit, because that's something AI can't do. It can consolidate and, it can aggregate and it sounds like it, can do more than my expectation, but the idea that this is so-and-so and this is their stuff, this is what they do, I feel like that kind of will just continue to exist, if not actually become, a bespoke kind of thing that people pay for. This is my assumption. I hope so.
Yeah.
Hope I'm right.
I think, sorry, go ahead.
But I wanted to ask you just quickly, which one are you referring to? What platform are you using?
I'm just using ChatGPT.
You are using, okay. Okay.
Folks, for those on the phone, I know there was a great question about how much am I going to have to invest in this and how can I measure my ROI? You don't. Like, you can actually start with free ChatGPT. Now, if you're willing to take a little bit of a leap, let me tell you, the increase in value returned to you in paying for the plus, right? It's like $20 a month, is massive. It is massively different from the free plan. And it's $20 a month. And it doesn't commit you for the year. Try it for is $20 in potentially finding magic that burdensome to try for a month. I hope that it's, I understand the realities. We're in a tough economy right now, but try it. Just try it, $20 for a month, and use it, right? The more
you can also use it for creating custom GPTs at that level.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you can lean on the other custom GPTs that people have already created, right? That they hinted at this earlier. The challenge that Mickey and Dr. Pradeep were talking about is this is always a push and pull. It will always be the push and pull. You either build something that's really great at a lot of things, but not so great at a specific thing, or the vice versa, right? ChatGPT is really great at a lot of things. It will fail miserably at a lot of very special things. And things that are focused on very special things will stumble over the very broad things. So start with the general. ChatGPT is the lowest barrier. Right now, after this call, you can literally go to chat.com or chatgpt.com. They now redirect to the same thing. And just try. The thing that I will give you, the super power shortcut, accept that the first stuff is going to be terrible. Accept that the first stuff that you're going to hear is like, there's no way this thing can do X, Y, Z better. It won't do it because you haven't given it a lot, right? Would you be that harsh on a new employee that's trying to assemble a new jet engine from day one? I hope not. Give them the grace that they need a little bit more care and feeding. But that barrier is so low right now. Every single person on this call can go to chatgpt.com right now and ask it. But if you want to give a little bit of that magic, don't ask it something about your business. Just ask it something crazy creative. Like I said, tell me something that would be a bestseller in 1993. And you might be surprised, right? You might be surprised.
Yeah, totally. I agree with you, Sojo. It's a great answer. And thanks, Nancy, for the question.
Sure. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for joining. I want to honor the other folks. If there's another burning question, thank you so much for spending the extra time. I'd be happy to answer any one last question.
I think Irina had a question which you answered, right? And then I see someone's Barkava's hand is up. Barkava, do you want to go on audio and ask your question? Or do you just want us to answer it? What would you like? Okay, maybe we should answer. No, he's there. I can see his hand. Allowed to talk. There we go. You should be able to talk now, Barkava.
Hi, good afternoon. Hope you are doing great. Thank you for the opportunity. So I have been hearing a lot of since Pradeep talked about neural networks and everything. So I have been there. Thank you for the information. And I have been using ChatGPT and Perplexity for a long time, since it's been in the market. And I find they are very useful. And it's just that when we ask the GPTs to put a hat, be a thinker or be a critic, so that they can able to do that. It's very impressive. But I am scared of privacy. Yeah, because the GPTs get our data. So the information is wealth, as you say in the world, and the information can be used against us. So I'm quite worried about that. Wow, what's your say on that?
Yeah, well, maybe we should get you on our marketing and sales team, because that's precisely what we built our architecture around at Engine. It's understanding that data provenance, data protection is going to be this emerging chaotic world for a while. I can reassure you all I want about, here are the user agreements, here's the white papers that prove that your data is going to be protected, but you won't feel that comfort until you've had a chance to work with it, right? The challenge, and I'm really glad you brought this up, we've been talking about, hey, just jump on ChatGPT. Please do not put your strategic marketing plans or actual customer data on that chat. Please don't do that. This is why I've been giving you very non-threatening, no stakes kind of examples. You don't have to give your actual inventory numbers. You can just say, I still sell XYZ, here's the price. You don't have to give it order information. For these general tools, they are very concerning in terms of privacy. Where you start to have solutions that are going to address some of these concerns is when you start looking at these offerings from, say, like Azure or Google or companies like Engine, right? We specifically architected our platform so that your data belongs to your data. It is always your data. It sits in your firewalls. It sits in your servers. It doesn't go anywhere other than there. The second part that's going to help with that is whether it's a commercial large language model, that's the term we've been throwing around, LLM, the large language model. That's just the fancy algorithm that starts to understand human speech, right? Human language. Those, we're always going to have a little bit of that anxiety of like, are they really not protecting my data? Are they going to just turn around and use it to make their own models better? And so that when my competitor comes in the door and they use the same model, now it's gotten better for them too. The counterpoint to that are these open source models, right? Things like Llama, things like Claude, things like DeepSeek, right? These are things that you can deploy within your data centers, within your firewalls. And it's not that you just deploy it there, but you have the full source code. You can know exactly, right? It's not a black box to you. Your engineering teams can see, here's exactly what the data is doing. Here's where all those inputs and outputs are going, right? It is effort, right? You have to have some level of expertise, some level of resourcing. Again, I don't know how to answer this without advocating for Engine AI, because I don't want this to be a sales call, but that's what we do, right? We do it in such a way that if that's the need that you have, we can do that for you. And you're going to exist in a world for a bit where it's a hybrid, right? There's going to be low stakes stuff, right? Your frequently asked questions, your Q&A sections on your websites, that's already public. You don't have to worry about that. Where you won't want to send it is the actual metrics that's powering that, how many people are asking this question, what your response times, et cetera. But just throwing the Q&A, throwing the facts, that can help. Those are low stakes. You can start with the public. To I think your printed question about, the wait times and waiting for the order, that is proprietary, right? You want to be careful. You'll want to use a platform that's accountable. Yes, can you ever truly know what Azure is doing with you, with your data? No.
Yeah.
But the stakes are higher for them, right? You're not
Yeah.
going to sue a mom and pop LLM shop, but you can be sure that Microsoft has a much higher stakes that if they get it wrong, right? There's an accountability there that you're not going to get from a mom and pop, right? So that's it. I know it's not perfect comfort, but it's the best we can do right now. And let's be clear, that's not just Gen AI's problem. Where do you host your data today? How do you know that host isn't doing something with your data? Probably all of us on this call use Google Apps, right? As an AI professional, I freak out that now Google AI is default on all the documents I do in Google. I freak out that all my Office and Microsoft things automatically have Copilot. It's going to be uncomfortable for a while, right? And to the comfort level you have, you can disable those things, but it's already happening. And by the way, this isn't new. All that intelligence that happens on your Gmail, all those ads, it's been reading your email. Sorry to break it to you, but it's been reading your email for well over a decade now, right? It's not small comfort, right? But I'm just saying, like, you're never gonna know. You're just not gonna know. All you can do as all you've been able to do for the rest of your business is do the due diligence, start small, start with the low stakes stuff, and then go through a graduation funnel to the higher stakes data.
Yeah, thank you, Sergio. In the process of you explaining me things, you have already clarified my other doubt. Regarding using AI in our companies, in our databases. You answered that question very well. Yeah, thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, team, let's bring it to a close. It's been wonderful talking about small to medium businesses and AI and stretching widely, both intellectually and practically. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation today and that you'll join us next time. If you have any AI needs, whether it be strategy or execution, please reach out to Rethink or Engine I, or Cindy Ann, myself, or Sergio. Have a beautiful day.
Yeah, and thank you, Chelsea, for moderating and hosting. Thank you, Sojo. We're so grateful to have all of you here. Thank you to those who stayed a bit longer. We're grateful, and we wish you all a beautiful week. And we'll keep you updated on the next webinar. It should be in a month. We do these monthly, and please join us. We'd love to have you there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.